Hi, as Mike introduced me, and thanks for joining. As Mike introduced me, Bud Shaw, I'm a solution architect with GSI. I've been working with JD Edwards for over 23 years now, and 30 years as a solution consultant. And one of the things about me is that I'm a kind of across the board functional guy with JD Edwards, so I know most areas of JD Edwards. So I'm kind of good because these areas we're talking about, forms, personalizations, and extensions, and the enhancements, are available all the way across all the applications, all the functional areas. And I'll probably just focus in on a couple areas like sales order entry or procurement today, but realize these things we're talking about are tools level enhancements. And where I'm at now is this is as of 9264 tools. You probably are familiar now that Oracle has changed the naming convention of the releases of JD Edwards to now it's called Release 22. So they actually have Release 22.1 from tools, which related to 9261. And now there have been 3 more releases up to 9264. So a lot of these that I'll be covering today are really going along with Release 22, but some of them have gotten new things picked up in the last 3 tools updates, and I'll highlight those if I can for you. So, what we're going to cover here is user UI enhancements. I want to give you guys a flavor and overview of personalization and extensibility frameworks. In other words, form personalizations and form extensions. Those are the 2 areas that we'll focus in on. Mainly kind of use how you can use these tools, the user interface tools, to simplify your user's experience and then extend business process, give them more functionality. I'll show you a little bit of an example of populating a orchestration into an application form, right? And how that can then extend the process, make it easy for a user using an orchestration no code option to get some data and help enhance their work. I'll cover what's new as much as I can, editing controls. In other words, fields on the forms. You can make them required, you can make them not required, you can bring up hidden fields and things like that within it. The form extensibility capabilities, where you can create new exits. In other words, what used to be when you did a form interconnect to create a new exit on a JDE application, you had to go into what we fondly call the fat client and do a development project. Well, you don't have to do that anymore. Those are user-defined objects, and you can create those changes in form extensions. There have been a lot of grid enhancements, easy to do things like associate the description within it, bring out hidden fields that you couldn't see before, and then setting of how many rows can be set to that form extension and that. And then the newest one, which I'll hit toward a little later on, is a free-form orchestrator call. For a while now, you've been able to add a button or call an orchestration from a JD Edwards application form, but now you can call that orchestration and give it a free-form input. My example will be purchasing department for a manufacturer. He wants to just enter, while he's in the procurement program, getting ready to enter a PO, he wants to do a quick inventory count. Tell me how much inventory I got before I go ahead and push this over. So the free-form orchestrator call says, what branch plant and what is the item number, and it'll return the answer. And so that's kind of a free form. Before, you had to map fields off the application to do it. So in a lot of these, Oracle keeps on enhancing JD Edwards with these. So a lot of these, as you're showing in here, that they were researched or released have been picked up from this one, from the 9.2 release. So some of these, volume level pricing and procurement, right? That's something that's already out and available to you. This is rich text messages, and a lot of the features we're talking about is the digital transformation, where you're adding, modifying the user interface and things like that, and simplifying it. So a lot of these features Here's extensibility, create row and form axis. One of the things I'll show you is not planned, has been released already in this 9.2. One of my favorite things in the orchestrator is logical extension is capabilities. Well, it not only came about that it was released in release 22.9.2.6.1, but in 9.2.6.2, you could call a business function from within it. So a lot of things, Oracle and JD Edwards keeps on evolving, keeps on improving. And as much as I can, I'll do these webinars to help get you familiar with the new features that are coming along with. So the framework and where we're at in here, we're going to focus in today on form personalizations, right? Some grid format and form extension. But I also don't want to, forget that you've got all these other user interface features to take advantage of. A Cafe One link on a page. To call out another application, and automatically display that information without even going to a row or form axis. Composed pages, the new page composer, you can add orchestrations on them. So I've got other webinars and other topics. And if you have any interest in any of these other topics as we go along, feel free to throw a question in. I'll see what I can do to help answer it. But the topic areas we're going to focus in today are form extension, form personalization, just a couple of the user interface framework features. So you just to clarify, why are we doing this? Why do you customize forms and do form extensions? This to simplify the user interface for your users, right? If you're only buying procurement items for manufacturing consumption for direct procurement, you don't need to have retainage amounts and things like that. Or if you're only working in US currencies, you don't need those fields in there. So you can streamline the user interface, making it easier for users. Require some fields to be required now, whereas before they may not have been. Even if it's a UDC code with a blank value, you can require something to be put in there so that you can get better data quality moving forward. Moving form fields from one tab to another tab, especially like in the sales order entry, the Power Form P42101 that we'll be spending some time in. Very few people use the other tabs, but you can move fields from one tab to another to make it easier. So these are just many of the things we'll be covering here. I'm going to show you creating a new row and form exit, adding logic to your application, calling an orchestration from within it, and other features as we go along through this next half an hour or so. Right? What I'd like to do then is just kind of call out, and I can provide this slide deck to you. I've put together, some of the features that are available within form personalizations, and some of the features that are only available in form extension. So as you can see here, you can rename labels, you can reorder the forms, moving things and changing the sequence in both a form personalization and also a form extension, right? So you can do these things in both. But some of the things that we're going to go into, like creating a new exit, adding or deleting an exit, or calling an orchestration, you cannot do those in a form personalization. You will look to form extension to do those. And just so you're aware of, a form extension is basically making an edit to the base JDE object in the object specs. So it's not version specific, it is programmed. So when you're going to make a change in a form extension, it's kind of across the board for everybody who accesses it. I think they're working on enhancements to kind of take it to another level, but right now that's where it's at. But these are some of the things you can do in form extensions that you cannot do in a form personalization. So just be aware of that. But the beauty of it is, as you look at things, you can see here before and after example of managing an existing order. Where I only have one single tab and I have fewer fields and a simplified grid and things like that, making it more friendly for your users, more efficient for them. And you can add different things in here. So You'll use form extension personally, reducing customizations. Whereas before, if you wanted to make a change, you had a hidden field that you wanted to bring out, you'd have to go into a developer role and make that change, build a package, and deploy it. Nowadays, these are just user-defined objects that can be promoted from a dev to a PY to a production environment using the web OMW that's available within the releases. So renaming labels, moving things around, changing things, so just reducing customization. And then, whereas before, if you made that change, it was done in programming in a development mode, you had to be concerned when you upgraded. So all these user-defined objects that we're doing here in form extensions and personalizations are upgradable without any issues involved. So you can just see here is, a streamlining, from a customer sales manager doesn't need to see all of these exits. They can streamline into the exits and rename things that make it more familiar and comfortable for them. So just some examples of before and after on a sales order, all the different exits that that a sales manager, wouldn't need, and yet maybe somebody who's actually working in sales and needs to be able to go print a pick ticket, read it right away or something like that. They would have that access to it. So you're reducing customizations, making personalizations available to the appropriate roles within here. So there is additional security by doing this with these user-defined objects. As you create a form personalization or a form extension, you can use user-defined object security to add additional security. Who can get it and who cannot? So who can see different things and who can do different, you can add that additional security using the UDO security. So you're restrict access to the base form so that they can only access a personalized form. And you secure that through the user-defined object security, right? So this is just, form extensions and extensibility, utilizing additional business view columns that, that are the columns that are in the business view, maybe not displayed on the grid or in the header. And you can add those things out there. So you're getting a better solution, more complete pieces of information, right? Just an example of, adding additional field within here. You can see here, this in the sales order, this production number short field, it was tagged as hidden in the grid, where you can expose it and bring it out. You can make it, required. You can associate the description with it if it's especially if it's a UDO driven a field. So, making the forms personalized and making data more consistent because you've made them required and available to people. So why do you need to customize forms? As I kind of already talked about that, simplify the user interface, make it more usable, add things that are missing without going in through a big development role, a different project, adding logic to populate fields or different sections of the grid rows with that orchestrator call within it. So this is, we'll be going into some of these. I'll show you some of these. You can create a new row and form exit. I'll go into an example of, I'm looking at sales order and I want to be able to have a row exit to release the order from hold, because if I'm a sales manager, I have the authority to release things from hold. So why do I have to go through different applications? I can be looking at the sales order and row exit to it by adding that exit within the form extension. So I think at this point, I'm going to jump out here and just go into a demo. Like I said, I'll give you this deck. This is just showing you where launching orchestrations, not only from the application, but from a composed page. These are all this like check inventory orchestration, and I'm going to add that one to an application for us. So at this point in time, I think I'm going to jump ahead and jump right into a demo and put some of these things live for you. And before I do that, do we have any questions or in the chat or whatever? I don't see any.
Not yet in the chat, nope.
Okay, all right, thanks, sorry. So I'm going to jump into my environment here. And I'm just going to start it. If you haven't been familiar with JDE, you realize that, you know, some of the user interface starts with, you know, UX1 pages. So this is an example of a UX1 page. Am I in my right environment here? Let me check some. Yeah, I think so. Hang on a second. Okay, UX1 page with the alert, analyze, and act paradigm. And I'm going to start by going into sales orders or review sales orders, and we're going to start modifying the look and feel of that application using form extensions and form personalizations. So if you haven't, you know, seen a UX1 page, these are watch lists over here. These are analytical. These are not one view reports. These are analytics that come along with JD Edwards UX1 now. And then this is a springboard of applications that are commonly used for, you know, to act and perform a task, right? So I can call it, bring up the P42 101. I can just do a find to show some data in here. And in the upper right-hand corner here, right, these are my two icons that we'll be working with. The first one is form personalizations, and then the next one is a form extension. So I'm going to go into form personalizations to start, and we'll start, you know, cleaning things up and moving things. This customer, this salesperson only works in US currency, so they don't need the currency fields out here, right? We may take, they don't need to do an online invoice or copy or convert, so they can eliminate these tabs. So maybe we just gonna allow them to do a print ticket and credit check, you know, and if you want to rearrange, you can drag and drop and move these buttons around, you know, and as you'll see, as I add different fields and buttons to it, you can change the sequence of them, right, going forward. So, and now I've got some space up here since I removed the currency field. So maybe what I want to do is I want to bring some of the additional selection filters for them to go ahead and search on. So I can copy and cut this. Let's see, look at date ranges. We'll say I'm going to right click on this and we're going to cut. Go back to our primary screen and we'll paste it in, right? And now you know, that's the actual field, and we're going to move this guy, get a little better off, and we'll bring a date forward, right? We'll cut this one. Oops, sorry. I think, oh, that's all I wanted to do, the two. That's what I was thinking I wanted to do here. I lost my cut and paste. Why did you do that to me? Come on, bud. Well, we'll move the line down and rearrange it so we can see it a little better. But I think you'll probably get the point of copying and moving things from one tab to the other. You can even go all the way over and say, I don't need the additional selections tab, and we can just delete the whole tab. Previous order number. Right. And hide them. So we're rearranging, moving the date field forward into a front screen, and then if you wanted to work with this, now I've got a grid format that I'm associating with my form personalization. So in here we can default and say we want to revise orders as the default form, and we can set this as a default personal form when we get this thing. You know, while we're at it, we can just to show you some renaming, right? We always know it's the order, it's a number, so we're just going to call it order and maybe add a pound sign to it, rearranging that one. Branch plant, different things like that we want to do. So this would default in a grid format for this personal form when we're done it, right? And even if you're editing your tab sequence, you know, as people tab through the main header, see how the numbering scheme is. So we'll go through order, sold to, shipped to, you know, maybe you wanted the ship to be the next in the sequence after before the purchase order number, so you can change that, right? And it rearranges your sequence tabbing along with them. And then while we're at it, we can personalize the exits in here. Remember, this is where we can rename our exits. So we'll rename this. Let's go with row exit to order. And let's just, you know, just to show you an example of renaming. Information, right? And then, you know, if you want to take away, if you don't do a make to order, why would you need to go to have the work order revision? So you can hide different things. You don't do style matrix. So you can remove these different row exits from the screen as you're going through this, right? So we can rearrange, move anything we want around here. This is our date that we dragged and dropped to search along with it, right? Now we can go ahead and close this. So we're going to close this and save. And we'll call this, you know, Bud's form. Now, and if as you go through this, you will see, you know, hopefully you understand that I'm going to create this form, a personalization, and then if I want to set it to be for the whole organization, you will be able to then share it and publish it through, you know, using the UDO manager P98220U. Right? So changing the form, changing the personalization along with it. Oh, I think there was one more thing I wanted to show you here. We've got some space here. So maybe one of the things we want to do along with it is add a layout, right? So let's add a layout, a Cafe 1. into that space. And we're going to add a enterprise form, right? To go in here. And we're going to add that one to the credit check, for example, because that's something that's important to your user. And we can make it a dynamic link by mapping the address number to our sold to. So you can see that now as we select the row, you know, so making a more user-friendly view here, right? So here's, you know, for each, this user, global enterprise is that customer. So you can take advantage of the extra space that you did by cleaning up and clearing out the overview. You know? Now we can also then go into our form here and go in and do some form extension and changes, right? Adding and doing some other things in here. So, I'll just be in another session. I gotta bear with me. That's why I was struggling here a little bit. Hang on a second. I gotta release. I was logged in at a different session and making changes to it. So that's why it wouldn't let me work with that one. So let's go back and do that again. So now we're going to go into our form extension, right? And here's where we can do some things like, you know, say if we get rid of our currency again, we don't need customer item or extend the back order quantity in here. We can now maybe add to the form a field and make it a searchable. So say our salesperson wants to do a quick search on order quantities that are of a certain value, right, over a large amount. So we can add that and then edit the control of that field. So we're going to rename this and we'll just call it, you know, order quantity. And in here, we can make this a searchable field by going in properties. Now there is, if I wanted to require, if this was a field I was adding to make it required, I would mark that as turn that checkbox to mark as required. But we want this to be a searchable field. And we're going to allow for a wildcard display, right? You can show it on the form or not. And or disable certain fields from being input. So this is where you're getting into editing the form controls for these features. But this one I want that to be searchable, right? So let's also, while we're add here, say let's add the currency field back up next to the PO for this particular user, right? So I'm going to add the currency code to the base currency code that for this particular order or customer. And we're going to put it right up next to the purchase order. And what we can do then is associate the description for it, and notice so that when the currency code displays, it'll display the the description of that currency code. So if it's, like I talked about, adding any UDC codes or fields within here to go ahead and control that within it. So let me just save this briefly and show you what we did with that one. So we come in here, if we order quantity and we say greater than, I should have made that a little bigger, 100. Now we've gone ahead and added a queryable field in it. And if we pull up an account, right, we'll see the base currency and the description of that base currency displayed. Now, what we also might want to do is manage our exits here. Now, remember when we did the exits on the form personalization, we could rename them or get rid of them, or delete or hide them, rather. I shouldn't say get rid of. But now we can add, or we can go to a row, and maybe for the customer row, right? We could add, and maybe we want to add our credit check here as a row exit. We could also do some other ones. I'll show you another example of that as well. From in here, then, as we're adding the row, the exit, what application. And this is our credit check form B. That'll be fine. And then the standard ZJDE, go next. And here's where you're going to map the field that you want to do. So this is the sold to for the credit check, and we're going to map these fields in when it does the form interconnect. We can do company as well. So now we've got a row exit defined there. So when we then save and close our form extension, right, we do fine, highlight, and when we go to the row exit, we have our customer credit check, the way that we just added. So calling out that. Now, another scenario may be if we have orders that are held, right? And I can't remember, see, I think I want to make sure I got a hold order out here. Bear with me. I want to find a. Oh, none of my orders are on hold here. Surely I gotta have one. Here we go. I'm going to do a query. Bear with me, folks, and add a. So here I've got an order 12128, and see I've got a hold code on this order. Now, if this was the case, if I was a sales manager and I was looking at these orders, and I wanted to be able to release the hold code, I don't have a row exit or a way to do that from within here. So we can go back in here. And add the application for the whole. Bear with me. So we're going to manage and exit, and we'll do it at the row level, at the order level, and we'll add a release hold. Configure that to go to the P43070. And this would be the work withheld orders and the sales release. We can have it pop up in the way we want it to work, and then define the inputs. Then we're going to map our hold code in, our order type, and our document. I think it's really the ones we need, and map that in here, right? So we can then save our form extension change. Let me remember what that order number was in this customer 4242. And we can go to the row exit on the order and release hold. It's going to take us right to the release hold, and we can go ahead and release the hold on it. Now, to even further streamline the process here, while we're in this application, the release hold, we might want to make a one-click, because to make this fast, because otherwise a person is going to go release hold, they're going to go ahead and release, they're going to have to input some information in, but we can now do a form extension here and further streamline our business process by adding a button to this application. So we're going to add a button. Let's move this out, give us a little more space, right? I like the way we can rearrange all the grid sizes and formats, and we'll rename this one called release hold. And then we associate an orchestration with it, so that we're turning this into a one button, one click orchestration. So when somebody clicks the release hold, it launches an orchestration. The release to held order. And just like you saw when we mapped the order form interconnect, right? We can map this in here too. So we're going to map the field to be the order number. The select the role is the hold code. In this case, I think we'll just make the release is the same, or we could have had it. We could allow the user to input it, right? If it was different, otherwise or we could default the value in to release it, and then the version that we wanted to call, if we wanted to override it, or we could leave it blank, and it'll just use a default version going forward. So this is new, being able to allow inputs free form in it. So, we can allow the user to handle or run synchronously and done. So now we've mapped an orchestration to this one, right? In it, so that when we're in here, the user highlights it, hits the release hold, verifies that's the password, and it's gone ahead and released the hold. So that was another little foray into a little bit different flow. Right? Now, I know we spent a lot of time here in sales orders, But what I wanted to do here is show you a free-form orchestration in mapping it into a purchase order. So I'm going to go back because I snapshotted my here we go. Hang on, purchase order. So in here, we go into add purchase order. Let's go. I'm going to go call one up here. So what I wanted to do in here is I'm getting ready to enter a purchase order but before I do that, I want to take a quick look at how much inventory I have of any particular item before I place it on order. I mean, I may have been looking at it. We're talking about without, you know, an MRP scenario. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a button. Give myself a little more room here. We're going to name this check inventory. And the reason I'm going into this one is because this is a new 9264 feature where I can associate the orchestration with the click of the button. Select orchestration. Inventory count. And here's where you can allow empty and allow input. These are new in this release. Before, you would have to map a field. So in here, we're going to say we want to give a default value and a default value of what branch we want it to do, how we want it to execute it. And then when we're going to get the available from the orchestration, let's just throw it up in here into the supplier number as we do. Okay, so we're saving that guy. So from a purchasing perspective, and I meant to show you, I've cleaned up this screen a lot by removing a bunch of fields, but I'm running out of time here. So when we click on the check inventory, it's going to prompt us for what item we want to check and what branch plant we want to call. And run. And it comes back and gives us a count of 829 in that branch plant. Of course, it would have been nice. I should have brought another field out and tracked it in.